Welcome to Marketing Matters with WEO Media. Today we have our good friend and close partner, Dallin Harris with Carenetic. Thanks for
Hello,
being here,
everyone.
Dallin. We love our relationship because although we also, of course, build websites, Dallin and Carenetic, they build the network websites and beautiful ones that allow you to really scale with multiple brands. But Dallin, you can probably explain that better than I can.
Yeah. First of all, I'm delighted to be here. You said it correctly. Carenetic is a website development firm. We are decidedly not a full service firm. There, all of the marketing and advertising and search optimization we leave to those folks. Our world is just being very, very good at websites, and more specifically, as you said, website networks. So you think of a DSO, an MSO that is managing multiple different brands, and they've got a lot of moving parts, and they're trying to make the sites work together but still be unique. We've got some expertise we've developed and some software that helps us basically solve that problem in a unique way.
Which is why we have the relationship that we do. We are we're very skilled at SEO and everything else, in addition to building websites. But when it comes to building a DSO website with multiple locations, multiple brands that needs to be as elegant as what Carenetic can build, we would prefer to have Carenetic build that site, and it's a great relationship. That we do the SEO and everything else. So, yeah, that's great.
Love that, and yeah, honored to be your partner.
We thought today we would just try on a fun project, and we'd go with 10 biggest missed opportunities that we often see when doctors are building a website. And so each of us have come up with 5. And I honestly, I thought that would be really easy. And then when we finished our 5, I realized there's at least another 5. and I don't know if we could put these in any actual order, in like, some big countdown to number 1 being the biggest missed opportunity, because it really depends on the situation, depends on the client, depends on your needs from a marketing standpoint. So all 10 of these are important. Some maybe not as important as others, but I think we've come up with a really good 10. So with that, Dallin, why don't you kick us off with your first one?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I want to say just how grateful I am to be here, and that I think the world of this industry, right? I'm so impressed with the men and women out there, the dentists, the office staff that is providing this important service to customers everywhere. I think it's a phenomenal work that they're doing. And I'm a geek about web development. I love the latest technology and what's changing and always evolving. And so these are my answers as of today and at the current moment in time. But that's one of the fun things I love about this industry is it's always changing and always evolving.
So
So
true. So true.
I would say, the first one I want to point to, the missed opportunity that I see for many brands and marketing leaders is failure to really take a brand position prior to building their website. So what I see is in dentistry and in other medical professions, it's tempting to kind of view ourselves as more or less the same as everything else that's out there. We provide a similar service, maybe you have some specialty differences, but by and large, it can feel a little bit commoditized. I think it's a big mistake, though. I think every brand is unique, and I think taking some time up front to decide, are there specific types of patients that you focus on, either from a payment standpoint, Medicare type patients, or from I focus on pediatrics, or I focus on people who are cash pay, or even just attitudes. Maybe it's the same service essentially, but I like the people who want to be in and out, and another dentist may like to serve the folks who want more of a relationship. There's really hundreds of different ways that a dental practice can be positioned, but I do think it's important to think about that and remember that saying no is really the essence of strategy. So it's more about cutting out what you're not going to do, or what is, not going to be a part of your offering. But doing that work up front, you start to craft what is unique and what's different about you. And the website is just telling that story, right? I'm always, if we're coming into a website project and the practice hasn't taken a strong position on who they are, it's just sort of hard to tell a compelling story because, it is on some level generic.
Right. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a very good one. Brand. And you almost need some consulting when it comes to branding, don't you? Because you don't see the forest for the trees. You don't see how unique you are or how your objectives fit into a specific brand. But that's important to put first.
Absolutely. And I think we all get a little bit insecure too about, oh, my practice isn't that special. I'm not that special. We have all this inner talk voice, but I think an outside consultant to come in and say, this is actually, I've seen a lot of brands and this is pretty unique the way you guys do this, and help us put into words, a way that we can confidently go out to the marketplace, hugely successful. It's going to come from you, but I think a consultant who can help kind of pull that out is very valuable.
Mine, my first one of 5, it fits into that a little with the real missed opportunity when websites neglect that tie into online reviews and social proof, which can also certainly define your brand because it's what your community is saying about you. And online reviews are huge when it comes to designing that entire experience. We often get the question, if we put select reviews on our website, like on a page, will people believe that they're real? And people actually do. Of course, it's nice to link to the actual source, the Google or the Yelp or whatever it may be. But you have to be careful with that design as well, because you don't want them leaving your website and then getting lost in the weeds about what people are saying about some other doctor or dentist. So you have to be very careful in that design. But the social proof side of it, in having people help tell your story with testimonials and before and afters, ideally that's done in more than just a couple pictures or graphics, with some written text and copy, but tying in the social proof and your online reviews is really critical when you're building a website.
Absolutely. We'll get into this more in a little bit, but one of the things that we did to add value is we did a study. We surveyed over 1,000 patients. Hey, what made you choose your provider? What was that journey? What was that process like? We were doing what's called an attitudinal segmentation to find out not their age or their gender or these sorts of things, but really their attitude toward dentistry. And what we found was that patients, shoppers, come in one of 4 different kind of main attitudes toward dentistry, and one of those we call the truster, which is what you're describing. It's the patient that's not that concerned with the details or where the doctor went to school or anything like that. They're not that overly concerned with the visual design of the site. They care about trust. They care about, do other people validate this provider and online reviews. So the number was 26% we calculated of patients shared that perspective. And you are right. It doesn't, per what we've seen, it doesn't matter if it's on your site versus a third party site. Another kind of pro tip there that we like to do, people have this imagination that the review has to be completely authentic, like what the person said, but patients aren't always the best at saying what we want to say. We have to coach that a little bit. And if we've done the brand positioning, as we talked about in the previous discussion, and you've determined, hey, we are more of a fast turn, we focus on speed and turn, that's our unique positioning. Maybe coach your patients when they're leaving their review to say that or to call that out. Or you can even, in some cases, say, hey, we would like to say this about your experience. Can you sign off on that? You agree with that? And that way you're getting kind of a testimonial or a review that reinforces that brand messaging.
Dallin, you'd think we rehearsed this, but the next point I think I'd really like to talk about is what we learned through heat mapping when we design a website. And by heat mapping, it shows, the cursor and the move of where the patient is going in the website, what they're clicking on, where they spend most of their time. And invariably, um, doctors and dentists don't realize that the real hot button is that about us page or about the doctor, and they spend significant time there. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when they go, the missed opportunity is that it's a paragraph talking about the doctor's uh, clinical bio, where they went to school and what all their awards are. And patients aren't as excited about that as the doctors might think. Or the web developer told the doctor, okay, I need your bio and it's for this page. And there was no more thought given to that. When in fact, that is such a huge missed opportunity. Doctors that specialize in children tend to do better in this area than maybe others, whether they're a pediatric dentist or a pediatrician. They take the time to try and connect with that child and the parent of the child. You'll often see videos where the doctor is talking about who he is and what he loves most, and how he's going to make this a great experience. And you have segments there where it's talking about or explaining the doctor's personal life and hobbies and cats or dogs or all the stuff that make them human, that allow people to connect with them on a human level rather than just an academic level. That's a huge missed opportunity, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's reminding me of there was a book several years around ago that made the rounds, The Speed of Trust. I think it was Stephen Covey's son, and he talked about this. To trust someone, we need to know that they have competence and integrity, I think is how he put it. To say, my mom, I think, probably has my best interest at heart. She's got all the integrity in the world, in my view, but she's not a doctor. I would not trust her to do brain surgery on me, right? Similarly, you can have a highly skilled, highly, all the training, whatever, but they're kind of a jerk. And you get this vibe that they're just in it for the money, like that you wouldn't have trust there either. And so, it's kind of the marriage of those two. But it is, for a significant portion of site visitors, something they are absolutely looking for. And you're right, the About Us page is a great place to tell that. And that kind of segues into what was my number two, which was designing for the user. So often when we sit down to have these initial design conversations, I hear a lot of, I want this on the site and I think we should show this. And I just have to hit the brakes and say, the site's not for you. It's not for the office staff. It's not for the doctor. It's for the patient. And listening to, putting ourselves in that patient's shoes, understanding where they're at, the language, the level of expertise they have on all of this, the way they like to be spoken to, turns out is, a critical point of what makes websites successful. So expounding on that a little bit, I mentioned we did this research study. We did find that 26% were very focused on the trust aspect. We found that there was another group that was very research oriented. They do want to know where the doctor went to school and how this procedure is done and how long it's going to take and what, potential complications could happen and where the office is located and what the phone number, they're very this left-brained kind of research energy. So you want to have that on there as well. And then another significant group we called them the generics. They could care less. They're not going to read anything on the whole site. They want the phone number and the address, and they want to know and the hours of operation. And, it's a good website, in my opinion, can cater to all of those. You want more details? We got more details. You just want the phone number? We can just get you the phone number. And that, kind of teasing, instead of just, 1,000 visitors, treating them all equally, kind of breaking it into segments and making sure that we have an idea of how we're converting each of those through. And by the way, one of those segments is not the doctor or the front office staff. They don't, that.
That's a good point, Dallin. That user experience should take into consideration a full range of preferences, because that website is built for prospective patients, not for the doctor. That's not the intent. The doctor may never look at it again after it's up and running, and often too many of them ignore it for the longest period, thinking it's like building a web billboard, if you will, that you ignore until it needs to be updated. Okay, here's one. This is a big one for me because I see it neglected so much, and it is such a powerful tool for helping the website connect with people. Granted, we build a website and we design it as we do for the best possible experience, but at the end of the day, we are a TV, YouTube generation. And so when there's no video, we are expecting that prospective patient to do a lot of work. It's when we first built websites before we put video on them many years ago. They were built for essentially research purposes. We pull up a website and we read. People don't want to read anymore. They want to be shown. They instantly want to be enfolded into what your message is. And so when it comes to video, there are five points of video that really spell out the missed opportunity. It enhances engagement, for one. It certainly enhances SEO, and I'll explain that here in a minute in more detail. It increases your conversion rate. It enhances the user experience, which is what we've been talking about. And it fosters something that the written word can't completely do when you have them for only a slice of a moment, and that's that emotional connection. Video does a much better job of that. One thing that's very popular now that we see very few doctors investing in, and it's not that expensive, is to have a videographer do a video shoot of someone walking through the office. We call it B-roll, where there's no voice and there's no sound. We overlay other sound to it. But essentially, you're seeing a video that allows the patient to be enfolded in what it would look like to walk through the office with happy, smiling faces from the team and the doctor and maybe patients. And that allows the patient to actually visit your office before they ever think about setting foot inside your door. That's a huge success in conversion rates.
Yeah. First of all, 100% agree with the emotional connection. I think a lot of people overlook that, but it's not just about getting information out there. It's about winning someone over. And if you, the doctor, were in front of a patient explaining why they should work with you, you'd do a phenomenal job, I'm sure, of helping them feel at ease, not just giving them the information, but helping them feel at ease. And I think video is a phenomenal format for that. I would say there are some challenges with video. Historically, it's been more costly. I understand that's come down some. I think it's sort of easy to do it poorly, although maybe correcting myself a little bit on that. I don't think that's the worst thing. Sometimes you see these highly overproduced videos and they're almost a turnoff. I think a real authentic video actually can be quite valuable. But there's some other things, you can't watch it if you're laying in bed late at night, next to your spouse or something, and you hit a video, and I think we've had that experience where the sound goes off, and we're like, yeah. And I think in our data, I'd have to look to confirm this, but I think sometimes they are skipped. I think some of those more research-oriented folks are maybe you have to have both, I guess, is what I would say. I think some folks really enjoy that, and others are like, yeah, let me just skim through and get to what I need. But you make some great points about, search engine rankings, overall user experience. And I would differentiate a little bit too, that we're not talking necessarily long 10, 15-minute detailed videos. B-roll is a fantastic way to give just a taste that's different than, and then like a 2-3 minute short video. So there's some different formats and some nuances there, but overall I think I'm in agreement.
Yeah, for instance, we call it the doctor video, but it's his introduction to a prospective patient. It shouldn't necessarily play just because they clicked on the page. It should be a regular page that shows his bio and picture and everything else. But then there's a window that's essentially a link to their YouTube page. And if they want to see or hear the doctor express some of that in person, they can click on that. So it's kind of it's an additional option, but
Yeah.
it's a very powerful tool to have a
So
doctor talk to someone like that.
Yeah. So I'm curious now, and you're teaching me some things here. I feel like what types of videos that are typically being produced, and are you sounds like you're posting them to YouTube, and folks are maybe finding that video first and then moving to the site. I'm curious about like how you deal with the cost aspect of this. I mean, what sounds, or maybe you've just seen that it's worth it. Yeah, tell me
Oh
more
yeah,
about
those
that.
are good questions. Video is of course a bigger investment, and video is not created equal. We have great video partners that are, when you're hiring a videographer, you're not hiring just a guy to hold a camera. You're hiring a producer that needs to be able to see the things that you're going to predict people will see. So if the doctor has a saggy T-shirt, for instance, I mean, it should be like, whoa, you need to go change before we do this shoot. And so those sensitivities have to be taken into consideration, obviously. But using video in multiple areas, even when you have, for patient education, for instance, is very powerful when you use video versus just copy and pictures. And you can use a third party resource for that. We often use Dear Doctor, for instance, that already has those already pre-built, and you can plug in the ones that are related to the services that you want to highlight the most or do the most in your office. And that's still a consideration for Google when they see that video. It's not unique, but it still gives you an SEO boost. And that's probably the other aspect of video, before I leave that topic, is that Google, as we know, has this insatiable desire for content. And your site will be ranked based on how much content you have and how much of that content is unique. And there's nothing more unique than a video. If it's a video you produced and it's just for your practice and it's you on the video, most people aren't going to copy that or steal that to put on their website. And if they do, great, because you were the originator. But that's another major boost to why we love video, and it's really because of ranking websites.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, what I'm taking away from that is, I mean, you're trying to tell your story, right? And I think, my firm has been historically focused on telling that through images and text, and the website itself tells a story, but there's another way to tell it. And then, I mean, they intersect with each other. It's not like we don't put videos on our websites ever, but it is interesting to hear your perspective of how that's been successful in search rankings, how you've been able to keep the costs down and really getting it right. Video strikes me as one of those somewhat unforgiving mediums where, like you said, you have a distracting, saggy shirt or something, and it has to be done maybe by a professional for
It really
to
does. We
get it
have a
done.
great partner that has local videographers just about every region of the U.S., and they've trained them very well. And I continue to be amazed at the pricing we're able to offer through using this partner. It's not as expensive as you may think. So give us another one, Dallin.
So my number 3 is think beyond the homepage. Yes, it's true. Half of your traffic hits the homepage first. But if you look at the analytics, there's a significant number of visitors who don't come in through the homepage. Maybe they found a blog post that you made. Maybe it went straight to a service page. And I think dental marketers need to think about how to capture this traffic and guide them kind of to the stories and messages that they want to hear. Typically, this means a carefully thought through navigation bar, right? Because if I landed on a blog post page, but I am interested in services, how do I quickly and easily get to that page? And I think it also means calls to action at the bottom of every page. If I just got done reading an article, would I like to read another article? If I just read about a service page, would I like to schedule an appointment? I think being thoughtful about how to capture and even intentionally rank for these kinds of things. This gets into search rankings, but it's a lot harder to rank for, dentist Gilbert or dentist Phoenix than it is for, a specific service or a specific and so those are going to end up on what we call long tail landing pages. And we just got to make sure that they end up back in the story we want to tell them instead of randomly just bouncing around, picking what they want.
Good point. Good point. So here's my next one. When a practice is doing anything in the way of paid ads or paid advertising, which when you're dealing with certain specialties, it's a must. Too often, the missed opportunity is spending that kind of time and money investing in an ad campaign only to have that click go to the homepage of the website instead of a landing page that's specifically designed to capture the interest of why they clicked on that ad in the first place. And when it does that, when you send them to the homepage, you're expecting that patient to do all the work and they will lose interest and you will not capture that conversion. And so even Google ranks the quality of that ad based on how well you're able to capture it and where it's going, where you're sending that click to. And the higher you're ranking with Google on that campaign, ultimately the less you spend and the more clicks you'll have. So not maximizing the campaign with a landing page strategy for digital advertising is another real big missed opportunity.
Yep, totally agree with that. As far as starting point for a landing page, I mean, it makes sense why people would want to send it to the homepage. That's typically kind of the front door welcome to the site. What we like to do is clone the homepage and then tweak it for whatever the specific messaging is. So if there is a promotion that's going on and you want to kind of call that out in the first section, but the rest of the page remains relatively the same, I find that the homepage is a good starting point to kind of clone for those landing pages. I can't even remember where I learned this now, but the idea is it's almost like a dog following a scent, right? It's like I was on Google searching for something, I found an ad, I clicked on it, and then I go to the next page and it is something totally different. Like this is not the term I was looking for. I'm now lost. I'm confused. It's a bad user experience. And so you just in those first headlines on the page and those images, you're kind of reinforcing, hey, this was a cost-oriented ad. We should kind of flow that all the way through. Or this was a service-oriented ad. We should flow that all the way through. In our product, but one of the ways we deal with this is we don't really build pages. This can sound like a weird way to say it. We don't really build website pages. We build website sections of pages or components. And the idea is it's almost like Legos. You're assembling. It's like, hey, we need a new page. We're going to pull in this component, then this component, then this component, then this component, and there's a landing page. But on a services page, we're going to use this one and this one, but this one we're going to use differently. And that's just a way to quickly assemble new pages without having to get a graphic designer and a writer and a programmer and kind of build each one out. Works fine on one website to do it that way, but when you have many that you're managing and many landing pages, you're going to get in a situation pretty quickly where you want to be able to edit those pages quicker to test what's working and create more specific ones for each campaign.
That really speaks to your experience with that elegant design, being able to move parts and scale it like you so beautifully do. You're right. If you're running an ad, you want to be sending them someplace they're not expecting to go. They're expecting to go deeper into that experience of the website, if you will.
Yep.
But those calls to action, we call them CTAs, really need to be very clear so that you're not confusing the potential patient in that ad experience. You're right. I like that.
So as we said at the beginning of the call, our specialty really is on website networks. So this next comment is for those who are managing, I'd say more than 2 or 3, maybe they have 10 or 20 or 50 different brands, as many of these DSOs do, not locations, but actual different brands that they're handling. I think it's a missed opportunity for those folks it's like, we have 50 brands, we have 50 different websites. It often starts that way because maybe through acquisition or whatever, they kind of, this one was built by this person on this technology, and this one was built by this person with this design mindset in place. But it really starts to get unwieldy after about 10, and you're trying to make an update, and you've got 10 different platforms and 10 different ways they were built and 10 different levels of quality, at that point, and this is the missed opportunity I see, is many of them are just kind of copy pasting. Like they get stressed and they just take one that they like and they kind of start copy pasting that for each new site. I think it's a missed opportunity, and they know this, to treat every brand as the same, because as we discussed at the beginning, positioning is like the number one tip to building a good website, understanding what's unique about each practice. But understandably, they're not going to go through a custom design process for every single one of these 50 sites.
Right.
And so that's the opportunity there, is to see it as a network and build a set of tools and a set of components and sections that are kind of pre-built, pre-programmed, pre-approved ways of saying things or ways of building things, and then assembling them for each brand allows you to capture the uniqueness kind of each brand while still running on a unified code base. That way, when something happens, like you roll out a new practice management system or you integrate with a new billing software, there's a central place where you can push that update, roll it out to all 50 websites without kind of, typically it's cost times 50, right? You want to roll that out to 50 sites, you got to do it 50 times. If it's on a network, you roll it out one time, and that's massive savings in cost, massively simpler for the now very strapped marketing team. I would say think of your website as a network, not a collection of sites.
That's how you're able to scale as elegantly as you do. That makes total sense. And it's, you've got to do that in a cost-effective way, because once those sites are built, they've got to be maintained. They can't just be ignored because it's too difficult to make 50 changes to 50 different websites.
That's right.
They've got to stay viable and relevant to the overall organization. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and things change in this industry. I mean, I joke all the time. It's probably been reinvented 5 times in the 20 years I've been in business. I mean, you have the mobile phones came along and that changed everything, and then you have all this accessibility legislation and HIPAA compliance and what we can track and what we can't comes along, and speed. I mean, there's these massive technological shifts that come through, and you do need to update the whole site. And if you've just got 50 different unique code bases, that is not efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. I've watched the industry being how long I've been in dentistry. I've watched this industry grow from no websites at all, no computers, to where we are today with SEO, and the missed opportunity is really in the SEO world. And when we first started building websites many years ago, we didn't even know what SEO was. I think that was a science that developed over time. We knew the big companies knew something about it, but a dentist didn't know how to invest in SEO, search engine optimization. How do you optimize your site to be able to be seen by the search engine so that there's purpose in having built your site in the first place? If you build a site that no one can see or can find when they're searching for this or that, it's the equivalent of building a billboard in the middle of the desert with no highways. No one's going to see it. And regardless of how much it costs, SEO isn't something you do after you build the website. It's something you do as you're building the website, because that internal code is that other part of your website that no one will ever see, but Google reads that language. And so when you're talking about building a high quality website, it is almost, in my opinion, synonymous with building it with unique high quality content. We've talked before about Google's appetite for unique content, but frankly, it just can't be overemphasized. Something Google does that many don't realize or know is that they actually take a digital snapshot of your website every 30 to 45 days. And of course, it's done very quickly. And it's essentially what we call indexing. They index your site. And well, the reason they do that is they're going to compare that version of your site with the next version they index. And if there hasn't been any change, if there have been no posts, no updates, no additional content, no revisions, no added video, if there's been no activity at all, you can't maintain your ranking if you're even ranked in the first place. The way you rank is by having unique content that is continually growing and being interacted with your patients. There was a time, I think 10 years ago, you could actually get a practice ranked on page 1 with as little as 10 pages, or whatever you refer to them at Kinetic, 10 units or whatever they may be. Now it is a minimum of 20 pages to even be considered for that. So it's more that the need for that is more than doubled. But Google is watching your website. It's not as static as you may think it is. It's certainly not as static as you want it to be, as many doctors just ignore it for years before they even think about keeping it fresh or making a change. And often doctors don't even know what that means. How would I make a change? What does that mean? There's so many ways that you can keep that site fresh and growing.
Yeah, you're right. This is one that could be a whole episode, or probably even a series of episodes in and of itself. Of course, we could talk of what we call technical SEO, which is literally, as you mentioned, when Google comes to index the site, they're reading it. But there are things we can do to make it easier for them to read it, right? Perfect example is if you have a giant image on the homepage, and in that image, you have some messaging about a promotion or a service. Oftentimes Google can't read that image. And so even though it's clear to a human who visits the site, if we don't have some code behind the scenes that explains what that image is about, then Google will not understand that that's the thing. They're getting better at that sort of thing. But there are a number of pieces of code that go on behind the scenes, basically, that a human will never read, that is instructions to the search engine about, hey, this has changed, this is important, this connects to this, and basically, trying to put our best foot forward when Google comes. So there's a whole thing we could talk about with technical search optimization. I would say, though, from what I see, and maybe you agree with this, is I think the most important part of the search engine optimization game is picking the keywords you want to rank for carefully.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, first blush, any doctor's going to say, "Oh, I want to rank for Dentist Phoenix." I'm in Phoenix, so that But it's like, really, there are hundreds of doctors in Phoenix, and it's going to be, and many of them have had a huge head start. It's going to be very difficult to rank for a term that generic. But if I can go for Dentist Scottsdale or Orthodontist Scottsdale or some specific service Scottsdale, yes, fewer people search for that, but the competition is also less. And I would rather be number one on that term that is, less searched, but actually more relevant to what I do than Dentist Phoenix anyway. Most of the people who hit me for that link are going to realize I'm 25 miles away from them, and they're going to move on. So picking that right balance of a word that is not too competitive, but still gets a plenty amount of traffic and is highly relevant to, what it makes my practice unique, going back to positioning again, I think is the winning move, before you start going through your pages and changing the words and doing all the technical steps.
You're right, because it ties back to branding. It ties back to who they are. What do they want to be known for? And that's the reason you're building the website in the first place, is to expose who you are to the world so that there's appeal.
I'll also say, and I don't mean to open a whole can of worms with this, but we live in an interesting age where artificial intelligence, large language models are a thing. And it's going to be, I see two sides of that are interesting. I mean, number one, I see a lot of people generating the content for their blog posts, for their service pages, for whatever, through an LLM because it's easy. I honestly, from what I've gathered so far, Google's having a hard time telling what was written by a human and what wasn't. So that's a good thing in the short term. I believe if you read an LLM based article, you can kind of tell because it doesn't say anything potentially, new or unique. And so I would say maybe there's a short-term gain that can be done by using that, but I would still be careful. And I would certainly guide it through, again, our unique positioning and some kind of a human review, because I think Google, that's essentially spam in Google's mind. And I think they'll catch up to that. the other side of it that's interesting is, do we enter a world of AIO, right? Artificial intelligence optimization, where we are, because in the future, heck, today, I'm using ChatGPT to research something. And if I could very well be asking ChatGPT, what's a good dentist near me that can, has pediatric services and a high reputation, and let the AI make that recommendation. And then the question is, well, how do we get on the AI's radar so that we are the practice that's recommended? That's a whole.
Dallin.
I presume it'll follow many of the same principles of search optimization, but it's, that's a change that's coming effectively now.
It really is. It's now. And it is the future, forever, however long that future will be. That's really the biggest opportunity we are grappling with now, is the AI world, and seeing AI become their own search engines and appealing to those engines like we did Google. That is an opportunity that isn't just a missed opportunity. It is a whole new field for all of us as we come up to speed on how to maximize that technology for our patients.
Yeah, it'll be fun to go back and watch this video in 2 years when all this is obvious and we know how this all panned out, to kind of see how wrong or how right we were. But
seems so elementary now. But the days of a doctor asking to come up with this content for the way he wants to describe, for instance, an implant, copying what he finds on someone else's site that he may trust and love the way they described it, those days are over, because Google knows where you got it and how many times it's been used already, and it will not do you any good. In fact, it will probably ding you when it comes to maximizing your SEO, your search engine that was not an optimization at all. That was a major mistake. You cannot copy from other people's sites, which means you've got to hire writers. And to what extent do you utilize AI in that writing process? Whatever you produce in AI, it's got to be human evaluated and monitored very closely. But this is a whole new world for us when it comes to AI. You're right. Yeah. That's a great place to end it right there, isn't it?
Yeah. So I have one more to share.
Go for it. Yes.
Okay. Give you my last one.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's my last thing I see as a missed opportunity. And that is failing to see the website as an investment, viewing it instead as a cost. This is going to sound a little bit self-serving, but hang with me. I have this, especially the doctors who maybe just got out of school, they've got a lot of debt. They're trying to build a practice. It's easy to get in this like cost resistant mode where, man, the carpet costs money and the equipment costs money and I'm paying staff and all this, and kind of getting this attitude of, I just want to minimize costs as much as possible. Totally understandable. In the case of websites, you can do that. You can go on Fiverr or Upwork and get a low cost website. And honestly, it'll probably work okay for you. I always ask people, are you trying to save money or are you trying to make money? Right? Both may be valid strategies at different times, but I think they overlook what a good website could do for them in terms of increased search rankings, increased conversion rate for patients, lowering the cost of servicing patients because the forms were online and the questions were already answered and you made things a ton easier on your front office. And so you get in a situation where a little more money spent doing it right can pay off during the 5-7 years that website is around in a big way. Not advocating for going nuts, right? Maybe you want to do some crazy animation effect that has all this whiz bang, and I may ask, like, are we really going to see our money back on an investment like that? But I think the key point there is to just evaluate these spends not as a dollar amount, but as an ROI, right? Like I'm gonna spend this, but what am I going to get back for it? And I think having really direct conversations with your advertising partner to say, how do I get paid back for this investment? I'm willing to spend more, but I need to have some confidence that it's going to come back to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Seeing it as the investment that it is, as a true cost of business, cost of doing business that gives you a return on your investment, is something many medical professionals and dentists have struggled with in that mentality when it's always the last thing they think of. It always goes to the technical and to the costs of equipment, and then marketing and the website is often a very much an afterthought when it should be the hub of all that you do is really that website and keeping yourself viable and visible in that search world. Yeah, that's a good point.
So there it is. We did it.
We did it. We came up with 10 or more.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had a more exhilarating conversation on this show. And we owe it to you, Dallin. Thank you very much for your time. This was really fun.
You're very generous. I agree. This was you taught me some things, and we got to again. That's what I love about this industry. It's always changing. It kind of keeps you young. But I would just end with hats off to the men and women who make this industry work. You imagine, wave a magic wand and all of the dental offices in America were gone, what kind of trouble would be in.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely respect the work that these folks are doing, and it's a pleasure to help let the world know about it.
It is a wonderful industry. Thank you to our listeners for hopefully this was beneficial in some way in teaching you something about the many missed opportunities we often see when building websites. Dallin, you have such a unique company. If there are listeners who would like to invest in a multi-site approach to maybe it's a new DSO, maybe they've just hit 5 or 6 locations and now they need to look at a more comprehensive solution for designing a multi-site website platform, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, great question. We'd love to help. We'd love to jump in on these kinds of conversations. My goal is to add value first, make money second. So if I can just be helpful and someone you can bounce ideas off of, even if it's a second opinion on something you're considering doing, happy to make friends in the industry and add value. You can find us at careneticdigital.com or my email address, dallin@careneticdigital.com. And yeah, we love our partnership with WEO. Certainly, work with you guys often to set up the overall campaign, the overall messaging and strategy, and all of the great services that you provide. We're focused on the website piece, but to the extent that can be helpful with that, happy to do so.
And of course, you can reach them through us because we have their number and we know how to reach them. But yeah, we're talking about a DSO of any size that may want to consider a more elegant solution to managing multiple sites. They need to call you. Thank you, Dallin. Appreciate your time and thank you for this experience.
Thank you, Joseph. This was great.